Right. Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to Office 365 Productivity Tips, the Wasatch Wrangle. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing all right. Doing some fun PC cleanup, getting ready to do some traveling, heading back to DC for SharePoint Fest DC this week.
God, you're always traveling, it seems like.
I always tell myself every year that I'm going to travel less, and then stuff happens. Yeah. Well, you're getting ready to do the big move cross country as well.
I'm going to be doing a 4-day drive from Portland to Minneapolis in order to move out there. So, yeah, that should be exciting.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say that I really like the Minneapolis area. I've experienced a little bit of the giant summertime insects. I don't envy the mosquitoes.
I'm looking forward to grabbing a few of those and raising them as pets, from what I understand.
Well, at least you can leash them, you know.
Yes, you can.
That is good. Right. Well, let's get into it. So this is a recording of a session that Tom and I did live at SharePoint Saturday Utah at the beginning of February. And whenever we do a live event, we try to go back and record our session. What's a little bit different, of course, is that we in the live events, and we'll go through this in here in a minute, but we in this recording, we're going to be capturing like the votes and some of the commentary that came out of the live session, so it'll move a little bit more quickly than the typical session. Well, I guess we'll get into that in a minute in the rules of engagement. For those that don't know me, my name is Christian Buckley. I'm a Microsoft MVP. So what is this? 7 times? I've got 8 rings. Let's just call it that. I'm like a tree. 8 rings.
I want a ring someday.
Yeah, you need to be ringed.
I want to be ringed.
The founder and CEO of Collab Talk. I'm also the CMO of Reveal.io, which is in the blockchain space. So get my toes dipping in a couple pools there. But you can find my blog at buckleyplanet.com and out on the Twitters at buckleyplanet. And Collab Talk is an independent research and technical marketing services company. We do a lot of research projects. I've actually got 2 that are concluding this week and 1 next month, and 2 new projects that are spinning up this week. So just a lot going on there. But Tom, why don't you introduce yourself?
I work as a software engineer for Cambia Health, which is a large health insurance company umbrella organization in the Pacific Northwest. There's my work address right there. Along with Mr. Buckley, I am out on the Twitters at Duffbert. And for my blog, the main one that pertains to what we're doing here is the 1minuteofficemagic.com blog site, which is where a lot of my productivity tips first make their debut.
And most of what we cover here too, if I like the things that I'm bringing that I'm going to spring on Tom, and he's not, because we don't know what the other person's going to, when we're doing a live event, what the other person's going to present. It's part of the fun of this model. But Tom tries to go back and the ones that he really likes and sees that are helpful and adds them to this blog as well. And the other nice thing about this is that if one of us is, outside of this, like running solo, like I'm doing a presentation at SharePoint Fest around these productivity, like top 20 productivity tips. And I'm pulling almost entirely, not all of them, but almost entirely from kind of the best of Christian Tom. So, and of course I'll be plugging away, pushing people to the blog, Tom. So
yay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So with that, here are the rules of engagement. So we came up with this way. We do it this kind of bout style. That's why you've got the boxing theme here. So each of us take turns. And when it's new content, so here we've already gone through it. We know who the winners and losers are of this round. We'll cover that. There will be gentle mocking throughout. But we take turns. And what's fun about this is that because we don't know what the other person's going to do, like maybe I'm sharing like an Outlook or Exchange tip, and then the next one Tom presents in that same round could be like a SharePoint tip or a PowerPoint tip or a OneNote tip. And so we then leave it to the audience to say, hey, these might be 2 very useful tips, but which one do I think provides more value to me? And then they vote on that. And so, different audiences could have different responses on each of these, but it just kind of makes it fun. And then we track the stats of those. But what we do, though, is we do not provide duplicates, meaning if we've presented it once, it never shows up in another one of these events unless we're doing a best of, like I'm doing at the live event. So no duplicates, no sneaking something that was a crowd user in the last event into the slides. Audience votes after each round. We say there's no hitting below the belt. Like I said, there's gentle mocking going on. Tom, you've been doing like the showmanship stuff. You've been like your dance moves.
Yeah, I did happen to start one of our events by putting on sparring gloves and a headband and eye black
and the music in the background.
Came out to Eminem's "Lose Yourself," and Christian just kind of sat there, looked at me bemused, and let me have my little 2 minutes, and then proceeded to want me 4-1 in that particular event. So it didn't work very well, but it was a lot of fun.
No, it was a lot of fun. So we do pick a winner at the end of this. We are tracking stats over time, and I'll share kind of the overall stats. 3 primary measurements at the end of this. And with that, Tom, you ready?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Let's get started. All right. So round 1. And so I'll kick things off. And these are also, I should point out that we make our slides available. If you go out to slideshare.net and search on the Office 365 productivity tips or mine or Tom's Twitter handles, you'll be able to find the content out there. So here's the first tip. And so some of these, and I should also point out, some of these may not be new to you, but these are things which we run into. We said, hey, look, these are things that have brought me some productivity. They've helped me out. So here's one around adding links to recent files in your document, workbook, or presentation. And so that's something, look, we all go and do that. We are constantly adding references within that. But I find myself, as I work with Word a lot, and I'll go in and I think like most people that are big OneNote fans, I do almost everything in OneNote. But then when I'm going and preparing it for presentations, for formatting, structuring that to be shared out there, I dump it into Word. I make sure that I add all of the accurate references. And sometimes when I'm clicking around, especially if I'm working on a document where I'm referencing 3 or 4 things again and again throughout that document, it's kind of annoying to go back and forth to pull the references around there. But you have this ability to go in and very quickly, right-click on the location where you want to add the link to this document that whether it's internal or external, that you've been accessing. So it's great when you have documents, maybe supporting material that you're making available publicly via like OneDrive. So you just use that insert link to those recent items and just click on that recent item and it will automatically add that hypertext link. Can you do this manually? Sure. But like I said, when you're going through doing a large document, it's really annoying to be going back and forth and grabbing that as you're moving between multiple items. And this makes it that recent items very quick and easy to find the correct link and to reference it correctly.
And for somebody like you who does a lot of reports and white papers and stuff like that, for you, this is like a live and die type productivity tip, which, makes a whole lot of sense for somebody who's spending most of their time in Word.
Was using it this morning. Yep. So, all right. So with that, Tom.
On mine, being that I do a lot of frontline support with actual users that are working for our company, a lot of my tips end up coming from people who are going, is there an easier way to do X, Y, Z? Or the fact that I share these tips internally also, a lot of them have this misconception that I know absolutely everything there is to know about Microsoft Office, which I'm like, no, I really don't. But this is one of the tips that came from somebody going, hey, is there an easier way to do something? And in this particular case, they had a list of email addresses that they had in Excel, and they wanted to send an email out to all these email addresses. And they were thinking, okay, I'm going to have to copy and paste all those email addresses into like a notepad area and then I'm going to have to go through and put semicolons between all of them in order to get them all in the right format, and then I'm going to have to paste them into Outlook. It's like, no, you can do it a whole lot easier. So what you can do is just go into Excel, do a selection of all your email addresses that you have and copy them, then go into Outlook and paste them into the to field. Now you'll see when you do the paste, it doesn't put the formatting for the semicolon and the separators the whole bit. It just does it as a straight line list of names. However, if you just wait a few seconds, and if you want to flip to the next slide, so after you've had your list of names sitting there for a few seconds, what Outlook will do is Outlook will actually go out there and put the semicolons and get the whole thing formatted into regular email addresses in the right order with the right separators, and you don't have to do any pre-formatting. You don't have to retype them all by hand. It just happens for you automatically. And for people who are trying to send out targeted emails to a group of people based on some data extract that they got out of Outlook or out of Excel, this has been a lifesaver for them.
Yeah, and so I just did this a couple days ago where I have, out of my little CRM platform, I pulled down about 350 names of people that have opted in about my monthly tweet jam. And so I send a calendar invite out to everybody on that list. And so I got the export, went into Excel, grabbed the column of emails and just dropped it in and pasted it in, and it formatted it correctly and then pushed that invite out. And so it's just quick and simple to be able to do that. All right, so if it'll move to the next slide, let's see. There we go. So who won the round? So we had the room there in Utah vote. It was 13-12. It was close, Tom, so close.
I will commend you, okay, never mind. I was going to commend you for the fact that you didn't resort to the making your winner picture really large.
No, but
your picture really small.
Yeah, but you know what? I was doing that, but I just thought I did this new little thing with the little animation that flies in. So.
Yeah. Should know there was something coming up there.
Yeah, of course. All right. So, Tom, ready for round two?
Yes, I am ready for round two.
Let's do it.
So in this one, this is a tip that actually came in via Sandra Mahan, who many of you know from the SharePoint community. And her and I like to share cool things that we found. In this particular case, it was like, oh my God, I just found something really cool. Do you want to see it? I'm like, yeah, sure, show me. So what this one involved was going into Outlook, searching for emails, which normally is no big deal. You just go to the little search box at the top of your inbox area and you type in whatever keyword you're going for. But the problem that people run into is that it'll give you a big list of any of the matches that you get for that word or phrase or whatever, but it doesn't tell you what folder it happens to be in. And if you use a lot of folders and nested folders and the whole bit, that can become problematic because you may need to actually find the particular email in context to where it's at in the folder. So in this particular case, what she showed me was I put in my search term, and then instead of just searching on current mailbox, you actually go down and select all Outlook items, which is the last option in the drop-down. So when you do that, if you want to go to the next slide, at least in my experience, it grinds away for a little bit longer than it normally does in a search. But what happens is when it comes back with all the items grouped by the folders that they're actually in, which again, for a lot of our customers who are using a lot of email foldering and nested 4 and 5 and 6 layer feed, this right here is like a breath of fresh air for them because they can go do a search, find what they're looking for, and also find what folder they happen to put it in. And this may be used for like if they put something into a folder incorrectly and they know that it was an incorrect folder, but they don't remember what folder it was. This is a really easy way for them to go out and find where exactly that ended up at
And that can happen, Tom. One scenario is when if you have set up rules and you have that automation going on, and then somebody sends an email that maybe belongs in a different folder, but because of the way that you set up the rule, that it puts it in the wrong place.
That's a good point.
That's something where I found this to be very useful, because like you, I mean, I try to automate a lot of things. Certain communications, I have a lot of rules and policies set up in Outlook so that it makes my day-to-day, much easier. I can go and glance at and be able to know what I need to go and focus on.
So yeah, this one was a very popular when I put it out internally, and a lot of people were looking forward to using it. So,
well, very cool. Yep, I use that one definitely. So here's one which. And I know that, like, Tom, don't roll your eyes. I know you were thinking about rolling your eyes if you didn't actually roll your eyes, but
well, at the time that you did this, there was a little bit of eye rolling, but I will add a little commentary when you're done and give you a little bit more credit than I did at the time.
So what I have to say, I think what helped with this tip is that there were quite a few people that had Surface Pros in the room. That was always helped. But this is something where, it used to be my primary travel machine, and I've got a much beefier laptop that I travel with now. But I still have the Surface Pro, and actually got a couple of them. The original Surface. I've got the Surface RT as well, but haven't used that in a couple of years.
You've also got Zunes. Come on.
I know, but I have multiple Zunes, so there. No, but being able to go in and use your pen device as a clicker on the Surface Pro and for presentations, like, this was one of the coolest little things I've ever seen, to be able to go and build that in, because it happened too. Just the last event I was at, people were like scrambling to find someone with a clicker that they could borrow. And of course, they came in and asked me as I was setting up for my session. I'm like, no, sorry, I'm using my clicker. But it's, to be able to use this right off of the Surface, it's just that simple to go in, use your device, set it up as you click to go through those presentations. It's a nice little feature. So you had some commentary at the end of that, or do you want to show the notes?
Yes, I did. I was rather amused at this when it first came out, and I'm like, yeah, right, that's really cute. And the reason I did that is because even though I had packed my work laptop and I had packed my personal Surface Book, I wasn't presenting off my Surface Book because we were having problems with cords and, all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't test it out. And when I tried it really quick, it didn't work quite right for me. I thought, yeah, right. After I got home and I happened to remember this tip, and I went ahead and set up and played with the pen, it actually works, and I was a little surprised. Now, it doesn't replace a full-on clicker that has the little laser light and the whole bit. I mean, I would prefer have something like that. But again, if you're stuck and you don't have a clicker at all and you need one and you happen to be working off a Surface Book, this was pretty cool. I will give you more kudos now than I did at the time.
So I'm not so fancy that I don't have one of those fancy laser lights, on my clicker, but I aspire to that sometime.
Actually, I've probably got about 3 or 4 that do that, but I have no clue as to where they are right now. So
that's always the problem. Yeah.
The pen usually does travel with me.
So in the vote, again, very close, but ding, ding.
Yeah, right. Go ahead. Keep it up.
Right. I know. All right. So I'll kick off here, round 3. Get into it. So here's one that is, and my builds are gone. Apologies, because I transferred this over here. But within Word, you have the ability to go in and to get some help to leverage the cloud and some of the machine learning help with Office 365, and this feature called Researcher within Word. So you can actually go in, it's through the References tab, and select a Researcher. And as you go in and you'll have keywords, have phrases, have topics that you can add those in, and it will go out and find these sources and the references. So the top sources that have been found around that topic, and sorts for you. And so it's a great way to very quickly go in and explore. And this is, again, for somebody who is, whether you're doing a blog post or doing a research paper and trying to find some other sources around a point, around a topic, around an individual, it's a great way to very quickly and easily go find this information and then have it formatted, quickly within your content and adding those references in there.
Yeah, I think we had a few people in the audience who were like, "Oh my gosh, my child is going to love this."
Right. Yeah.
And I played with it afterwards because I had never seen this before. And I was pretty impressed. And I think if I remember correctly, after I got back, I actually used this tip internally. I may have even posted externally and just gave you kudos towards it. I don't remember. But it's a cool thing. And it's not one that I use a lot because that's not necessarily something I'm doing at the level that Christian is. But it is a cool feature, and it's nice to have that option to go out there and do your searching and your noting and everything else from within your Word doc.
And I put this in the same category as a lot of those great design features in PowerPoint, for example. And I think it came out around the same time when Microsoft started adding that in. So like people that are, it's not that I'm bad at designing PowerPoints, it's that I just don't have the time to spend to make it look pretty. And so having that kind of dynamic, automated design helps. I mean, this is kind of in that same category. Like, look, I want to go beef this up. I want to go look for some other relevant links to be able to provide around this topic, and this can save you some time.
Exactly.
All right, over to you.
On this one, the example is simplistic, but the person who had asked me if this could be done had a situation where they had a rather large Excel spreadsheet that had a number of filters on various columns, and they were just like, when I go back to the point where I need to see everything in the spreadsheet, I have to go through and find each column that's got a filter and close each one out, and then I can't remember if I got them all in the whole bitch, because there's a way that you can just clear everything out column filter-wise with a single click. This isn't exactly a single click, it's kind of like 2 clicks, but it's close enough. So in this particular example here, I've got a small spreadsheet, and what I'm going to do on the next slide is I'm going to place a filter on the column, first column with A, and then put a filter on the second column for the number 2. So obviously, I'm only showing 2 rows of what was a really big spreadsheet before. But if you click your data tab up at the top and hit that clear option there, what that does is that goes out and clears all of your filters that you have on all of your columns. So with basically 2 clicks, data and clear, you get your spreadsheet back to the point where none of the columns are filtered and you can see everything out there, and there's no guesswork as to whether you missed a filter or not. You've got everything showing again. And for this person and for some of the other people who read it, thought, oh, that's really cool. And the couple who were really snide and said, not 1 click, it's 2 clicks. They really did like this one because it gave them the ability to make sure that the data they were seeing was all clean and was an accurate representation of what they were acting on.
And so this is something I was aware that was there already, but what I didn't notice was right below it, the reapply.
Ooh, I didn't even notice
clearing that and being able to go and then do a quick toggle to do kind of a, the technical term I believe is called stare and compare.
I got to use that one.
That was really cool. I'm just saying you can't use that now because we just talked about it within this one. But that's a great example of going and looking at some of these things, which maybe you're familiar with, maybe you've used it, but did you notice some of the functionality that's around it as well? So I mean, there's always there's so much within Excel. It's one of the top used products in Microsoft's history, and yet we only just scrape the surface of what it can do in our normal day-to-day. There's just a lot of little things like this that's out there.
Well, and you and I, being longtime users of these particular software packages, we find ourselves getting, or at least I do, we find ourselves getting into certain habits of we do things this way. Is it the best way? It's the way I do it. But then you don't necessarily keep up on new things that might slip in that would make that task a lot easier, because you just know that you always do it that way. And this was kind of one of those ones where, no, you just go through and clear the filters column by column. What's wrong with that? So,
yep. All right. And let's see how people voted. They liked your tip, Tom. Ding.
Yay, me. God, you even went with the thumbs up. I was fully expecting that the indicator was going to be somewhat derogatory there. But
no. I try to keep it consistent. With the handling of the slides, I try to make it so that I don't want any, bias one way or the other. So
yeah.
Okay, you're up with round 4.
So quirky spelling errors. This was one of the ones that was kind of a lot of fun, because it actually was a question that I had just lived with for a long time. And so we each have certain words that our fingers, because of the way they work and because of the way muscle memory works, you type something and it's always incorrect. And if you're lucky enough, spell check picks it up and fixes the error for you, and you never learn to type it correctly because the software takes care of it for you. But occasionally, as you'll see in my example up here, you get a word that you misspell that's not autocorrect fixed every time. And you're like, backspace. Well, actually, you can go in and fix those quirky spelling errors of your own in any one of the Office programs, which will then apply to all of them by using this technique right here. So if you go into any of your Office programs, you go to File Options. Once you get the options up, you'll see Proofing, and then Autocorrect Options. And on the next slide, if you're actually doing it in Outlook, it's slightly different in the fact that you go to File Options, but then you have to go into Mail first, then Spelling, then Proofing, and then Autocorrect. So they each accomplish the same thing, and they each, if you do it once in any one of the packages, it will apply to Word and PowerPoint and the whole 9 yards without you having to redo it in each. But slightly different way to get there in Outlook. So go ahead and bring up the next slide. So in the dialog box, you've got a lot of different options there that you can play with in autocorrect. But the main one that we're looking for is the tab that says autocorrect now. And then as you go down towards the bottom, you have a blank area where you can choose to put in your own quirky spelling. For me, it's typing too fast and getting a capital E in front of the P in SharePoint. And so I would always have to go back and lowercase the E, and I'd usually just backspace and retype the whole thing. Where now I can say, hey, if you see this quirky spelling of SharePoint, go ahead and capitalize it correctly, add it, and then from then on out, it doesn't matter if you have weird quirky spellings of SharePoint, it'll go ahead and fix it for you automatically, which was really nice. And I'm embarrassed to say how long I lived with that before I finally decided to research this out to fix it for myself. So,
no, that's great. I mean, just do you think about that? If you're constantly getting capitalization wrong in your company name and other things, just again because of the way that you type. I mean, you can't see it on the screen, but Tom can see it. Like I type with these 5 fingers. I never took a typing class. I am amazed at looking at my children in middle school and that they were typing without looking at the keyboard and just I'm like, you're making that up. That's not real. Like, come on. So I just it's a skill that I do not have. But having something like this, do I need to ever learn how to spell correctly? I can just mask my bad habits. Excellent. Thank you, Tom.
Though I must admit it was rather humorous when my kids were younger and my oldest child, who was like probably 10 or 12 at the time, had done a paper. And so he had wanted to use my computer and used Word to do it. But he missed the concept of what the red squiggly line was trying to tell him. Mm-hmm. So he just went through, and all the things that had the red squiggly line under it, just clicked add to dictionary, add to dictionary, add to dictionary. So it pretty much corrupted a lot of the misspellings in my setup, and I had to go back and try to clean all those out. So
that's funny.
It was cute.
Well, here is one where, again, it's a tip that I think everybody basically knows how to do this, but there are ways that you can improve on it. Inserting videos into your PowerPoint. And what is the best way to go in and do that? Well, one, so they're doing the insert video, and Microsoft has gotten better at automating this process and going, and from here you actually have the ability to go and search from YouTube from this insert. But once you select that or paste in that, it's really easy. Then add that in there. The image comes up. Click on insert and drops it in there. And then you can specify whether you want it to automatically start playing, whether you want to wait till it's clicked upon. And so you can set up and kind of design that experience with that capability. I think I was actually going to have this play in the live, but I didn't do it. So
actually, no, you did do it.
Did I? Oh, that's right.
You did, because I just kind of sat there and like, yeah, that's right. Just show it off there. Go for your votes, my friend.
There we go. Yeah. All right. Yes, that's right. I did do that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did.
But the audience did not did not appreciate that. Apparently, the loud noise scared them. So once again, and for those that are paying attention, yes, that is 2 rounds to 2 rounds.
Yeah, and the thing about that last tip that he used that we really didn't bring up in the rules, and that is, since I don't know what he's doing and he doesn't know what I'm doing, there is the possibility that we might both have the same tip in our packet of what we're going to present. And in this case, it was humorous because I do have a tip on how to do basically the same thing. Mine was more interesting because it was actually using a Lindsey Sterling video rather than some SharePoint related thing that
doing some other self-promotion thing. Yes.
Yeah. But
that's
if I didn't use that, I would have had to go to a backup tip. So even though we do 5 on 5, both of us have like a couple other ones on the side just in case we run into, oh, he just used something in round 2 that I was going to use in round 4.
Yeah, in fact, at the beginning of this session, I only had one backup. So I put together, and I had others that I had planned to do, and I just ran out of time to go, leading up to the event, as happens. Of course, my son got married the 2 days before the event.
Oh yeah, you were in a really weird.
A few things going on, But all right, so final round 5. Here we go, tiebreaker. So this one was something that I found this, and again, I didn't have my builds on here. I apologize, but you see all kind of the components here. This is something I ran into. I'm just like, this should be easier. How do some of these people go in and take these obviously customized icons, and they're adding them in? They're part of just their documentation. They're part of throughout their site, and it's consistent across multiple employees at a company. Like, how do you go in and do that? Well, there's a way using across, as it says here, Word and PowerPoint and Outlook and Excel, going and taking these scalable vector graphics. I'm not a graphic designer, but the SVG file, if you're using like Adobe products, things that are out there, but you can go in and convert your SVG images to an icon in Office. And why that is valuable, and where I saw this and was envious of others that were doing that, is one, you can then make that and offer that out to your employees as these icons as a template. So you can find the things which are unique to your organization. Or if you're doing like me, a lot of research papers and ebooks and white papers that you just want to have kind of a theme. So I don't want to use the same bullets. I want to have a stylized little icon, that for each section. But so you actually can go in there, and then the other cool thing is that you can then change the color of those and the put a gradient, or there's just a lot of things, put a shadow around that icon. And so it's a great little thing if you're like me, create a lot of documentation, to be able to go out and customize that look and feel and create a style and a theme around and use your company logo as one of those icons. Just a really cool little feature that I came across and wanted to share out.
Yeah, and I thought this one was pretty good because, much like Christian, I am not a designer by any way, shape, or form. And being able to take these, I thought, I wonder. And so I went out when I got back and grabbed like one of the dollar bill icons and found it really easy to turn it to a green icon instead of black. This is pretty freaking cool. So I haven't had the opportunity or necessity to actually have to use it in real life, but I really did like the options that this gives, because a lot of people are still stuck in the old clip art era, and the whole black and white bubbly guy that you see all too often, which is like rated right up there with Comic Sans.
Yeah.
These are like a whole new set of icons that actually look professional, at least at this point in time, and you can actually do things with them to make them pop more than just being this black thing that's sitting there that you can't do anything with.
Right, and that's a great point too, because for the exact same reason, I hate using a lot of just the generic clip art like you have in the image here of just the people and the things that are out there, and I want something that's a little more modern and stylized, and so you can do that, save them as icons, and then make that available to your team and use that in your documentation, and it just gives it much more of that professional, customized look.
Yeah, take the baby, make the diaper brown. I mean,
right. That's that's if you want to be able to visually identify the later stage of the baby care process.
Oh, and for my tip, what I did is I kind of riffed on the one that I did right prior to this, hoping that the points would carry over. In this particular case, it was more fixing the unintended autocorrects in Office. So depending on what organization or what industry you work with, there's certain acronyms that you're going to run into that, like, for me, being in health insurance, HSA for health savings account. Well, anytime I type in HSA, it turns around and goes, oh, you meant the word has. I'm like, no, I meant the word HSA. And so I type it back in there. It goes, no, sure, you meant has. And so instead of having to fight that every single time, you can actually go in once again, like we did before in proofing and autocorrections, and fix the autocorrect options to not have that come up and bite you anymore. So if you go to the next screen,
I would say that you're removing one of the most hilarious aspects of just communicating via mobile device these days.
This is true also. Yes, I meant to type duck. I'm sorry. So in this particular case, you go back into autocorrect. You find the autocorrect in the list that is causing you hassles. In this case, HSA was the one I was dealing with, and it kept wanting to change it back to has. So what you do is you just basically select that one, and then instead of doing replace or adding or whatever, you click delete. And now you don't have to worry about having that HSA versus HAS thing happen over and over and over again. And really, HSA is just a simple example. In a lot of industries, if you're acronym driven, which it seems like we are, I'm always running into those. That's not what I meant, or I have to go in and try to then insert the cursor into the middle of the word, so it won't try to autocorrect on me again. And this is just great to go in and say, I'm not even going to deal with it anymore, and fix it at this level.
The only danger there, of course, is if you do mistype HSA or has as HSA, and that it, leaves it alone or does nothing. I mean, I assume that the behavior is that it'll still do like the red squiggly under it. It'll identify, like, it'll ask you to confirm that.
Yeah, at that point, I'm sure it would go in and say, hey, I don't see that this is a correct word. I don't see it in the dictionary anywhere. So in a case like that, you would just have to go, yeah, okay, I'm just going to ignore it, or am I going to add it to the dictionary because it's something I do often enough that I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, let's see how people responded to your derivative work off of your last tip.
Oh. I had great hopes on it. I really did. I mean, I was feeling like I had it.
No, but it's, you know what? I like that feature, and I was just this over the weekend as I was editing several things, was thinking I need to go in and make some modifications to these auto corrects, because I've got a few things. I think at just some point where I was repetitive and I just said, look, I'm going to go save this in there, which has now caused me headaches later because I was done with that major document. So that's something that I do think needs to be fine-tuned every so often.
Yeah.
But I still really like that SVG conversion to icons, so I'll have to go with, I'm a fan of that, having found that, and I've used it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I pretty much, when you won this round, I pretty much had to admit that, that was the cooler of the two.
So as you look at the voting over the course of the entire event, overall winner.
Oh, ouch. Ow.
I had to add something else, Tom. Yeah.
Ow.
So now if you look at, here where we are, and for those that have seen a couple of these sessions we have a lot of fun with, but the current leaderboard for these and the recordings now with this one live, they'll all be out there. You can find it out there on YouTube. So the most rounds won now, I've got that title. We were tied before.
By one.
Doesn't matter in the world statistics, Tom. No.
Yes, it does.
Most events won. I've also got that one, but Tom still has that. Look at that. You've got a 40-point lead.
Yeah, and the next live event that we do, I'm going to also promote it heavily within my company, and we know what happened last time I did that.
We sure do, and that's why I have to take some extra care into thinking about the tips that I'm going to share and whether they will speak to that audience, that heavily Tom-friendly audience. So
I must admit that session was funny in the fact that Christian called me the day before and said, just so you know, there's like 102 people signed up for this event tomorrow. And normally we were like nowhere near that. And I said, I may have sent out notice to my internal mailing groups, which are about 1,300 people. And he's like, oh, well, heck, I'll lose to you every time if you can pull that kind of stuff. And we had quite a few people. But the funny part was he starts out with a delve tip, and we're not up on 365 yet. And I'm like,
yep.
Okay, I got the first round nailed here because they're all going, let's delve anyway.
Right. But I stand by that statement. I'm happy to lose every time if we got a great crowd and they're finding use out of each one of these. It's a lot of fun to do. And once again, thanks for everybody for watching the video. And Tom, as always, it's great chatting with you. And definitely want to go take a look at the 1minuteofficemagic.com for more of these kinds of tips. And occasionally I post this kind of stuff over on Buckley Planet, but most of what I'm doing now is just promoting it through this series and then letting Tom build out that content over on his blog. So it's a good partnership that way.
Yeah, like I say, we do have fun with this. It's been a lot of fun having the back and forth during the sessions and being able to share in this bit, both of us learning from each other and hopefully people learning from us. And it's a fun time, and look forward to doing more of these with you.
Well, thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.